Hi everybody, we are here from Women of the Well. I'm Shannon Garrett and this is Melissa Warren. We have a special guest with us tonight, Betty Thompson, and we are here every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock just to bring you our personal experiences and bring you the hope of God through those, and hopefully something we say tonight will resonate with you, maybe speak to something you're going through in your life. And we're just talking about our life and how we got through certain things. So we just want to welcome you here. If you don't care, if you could share this in case someone is hopeless and needs hope tonight, that is what we're here trying to provide. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, and we'll hear from Betty.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. We've been excited about Betty. We asked her a couple of weeks ago, which actually me and Shannon had kind of a list of people to get us started that we kind of knew that God was directing us to ask them to join us. So we've been excited about Betty for a while. Betty does some lives of her own, and I love listening to Betty. She's just the sweetest. If you don't know her, she's just the sweetest lady ever, and she's going to really bless you tonight. And when I asked Betty what she was going to talk about, she said that she was going to talk about troubled waters. So I never know exactly what she means by troubled waters. I just kind of go by what God gives me whenever I think about troubled waters, because she could be talking about anything.
Right.
But so I just kind of pray about it and always ask God to direct our words and kind of just combine them all together so that they work for Him. So today we're going to talk about troubled waters, and when I think of troubled waters, I think of a disruption, something that comes up, or a storm. We've all been through storms. Maybe you feel like they will last a lifetime. If you've ever been through a physical storm, say you're driving in the rain and it's just the worst storm that you've ever had to drive in, and you think, am I ever going to drive out of this storm?
Right.
Because I don't think I'm going to make it. So sometimes they last a long time, but we can find hope knowing that everything eventually will calm down. The wind will cease, the waters will calm, and the storm will be still. So how can you not think of when I was thinking about a great storm, I thought about the storm that Jesus was in on the boat with the disciples in the Sea of Galilee. Yes. It was a huge storm. A huge storm blew up, and the disciples thought they were going to drown. But Jesus was sleeping. If you remember that, during that huge storm, Jesus was asleep. He had such peace that he was sleeping. They had to wake him up and tell him about the storm and that he was about to drown. Can you imagine Jesus sleeping in that storm? It shows me the peace that he had with God, knowing that God was watching over him. So, once again, that's like me and Shannon. Shannon can be Jesus, I guess.
Thank you.
So, the boat's rocking, the wind's blowing, it's going crazy, and I'm like, Shannon, we're going to drown. And Shannon's like, oh, peace, be still. So, Jesus wasn't worried about the storm because he knew that God was going to protect him.
Yes.
And Jesus said to them, you of little faith, why are you so afraid? Then he got up and rebuked the winds and waves, and it was completely calm. And I believe that's the way that God wants us to live. He wants us to live in peace, and he knows that things are going to come up. And our first thing that we want to do is panic, because it's out of our control, you know. And like in a physical storm, the wind and the rain and the trees blowing and just, you know, everything going crazy, it's out of our control. So we think panic. That's the first thing we need to do is panic. And we don't even think a lot of times, like we said before, I just need to pray. I need to pray that God will calm this storm. And if he don't calm the storm, he's going to calm me.
Right.
So that's what I thought about when I thought about troubled waters. And I was just thinking of some different types of storms that maybe you've been through, because it's not physical storms, obviously. Right. But we go through storms. Maybe you have anger issues. Talk about a storm. Maybe you've been married to somebody that has anger issues, and they come in the house and they're slinging the doors and they're slinging their car keys down and they're slamming cabinet doors and whatever. That can be a storm.
It can.
Because it can turn into rage and violence.
Right.
It can be a storm of depression. If you've been through depression before, then you know it's something bigger than you. Mm-hmm. It overtakes your mind, your body, and it's hard to escape. So I consider that a storm. Addiction, if you have ever been through any kind of addiction, it overtakes your life. It's bigger than you are. You can't do that alone. Divorce can be a huge storm. It disrupts your life. It disrupts your kids' lives. It disrupts everything around you, basically. And it's a huge storm. Death or loss. So when you have a family member, a friend, or somebody that you're close to pass away, it completely turns your life around, turns your life upside down a lot of times. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with death.
Right.
You know, a lot of times we've never been through losing somebody that we love, and it's just a storm. It's a storm that comes in that we don't know how to handle or cope with. And illness, I thought of illness. You know, a lot of people have illness that, you know, eventually they may overcome, but there are a lot of terminal illness that it's a storm. I mean, it's a storm that is continuous. You know, they're having to go for treatments, or they're going to have to go to the doctor all the time, and it's just like, when is this ever going to end? So when I think of troubled waters, I just think of anything that we go through in our life that causes us disruption.
Absolutely.
And so we're here tonight to hopefully, if you have experienced troubled waters, because I think we all have,
Right.
and some
And still do.
and still do.
You know.
Yeah, just because we're sitting here tonight don't mean
Right.
that we don't, because we
Yeah.
do. But hopefully we can bring it to light tonight and let you know that you're not alone. If you're going through any of these things that I mentioned, and maybe, you know, some things that I didn't, I tried to think of everything, but there's just all kinds of things that can cause us discomfort in life, and just, you know, bring that raging storm to our lives. So I'm going to give it to Betty. I'm so glad that Betty's here tonight. I know you all are going to be blessed by her. Oh, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I almost skipped
It's
over
okay.
Shannon.
I can talk after Betty.
I almost
It's fine.
skipped over
Yeah,
Shannon.
let Betty go ahead and talk,
Okay.
and then I'll just talk after her.
So
that'd be
I
good.
lost my train of
Yeah.
thought. I was so excited to hear Betty that I
Yes.
forgot about my
She-
bestie.
Yeah, she'd rather hear Betty. It's okay. So no.
Okay. So Betty's going to take the floor.
Okay. Okay, here we go. You just confirmed a lot of things, you know, that I have been going through for the past week and a half, close to 2 weeks, I guess. Sometimes we know we're in a storm because we can feel it coming on. Well, my storm came very quickly. I was fine that morning, and then things just popped up, and it was, oh my goodness, where did it come from? Why is this happening? How long is this going to take? Why did it happen to me? Because, you know, I'm this Christian, and I trust God, and you wonder, why? How come?
Right.
Who done this? And what caused it? Well, I allowed myself all day to be in a panic and fear. Because when we start to panic, that fear overtakes us. And I was that way all day. And I would talk with God, but I did not take time to sit down and pray about the situation. I just panicked and feared. Late that night when I got into bed, I laid down and I said, I can't do this. So that's when I spent time with God, and I talked to Him. And He speaks so plain into me, you know. He says, Betty, hain't I always made ways for you? Haven't I always been there in the good times, in the bad times? And when you called out, I answered. And, you know, we talked for a little bit back and forth, and, you know, that peace that only can come from God, that peace that surpasses all understanding, it just come over me. Now, did my storm end? No. It's still currently going on. But He gave me that peace that I knew that no matter what I was facing, no matter what had happened, who had done it, who had caused it, He was with me. And when we get in that fear and panic, we think we're all alone. We're going to not know what to do, and we don't, because
Right.
we're on our own.
Right.
So that's when we need to, first of all, say, hey, God, I need some time. But sometimes it comes so quick on me that I panicked and I had fear. And, you know, God did not give us a spirit of fear. He gave us a good sound mind.
Right.
So Shannon asked me, I think it was the other day, what I was going to, yesterday or Sunday, when I was what I was going to say. I said, I don't know, I've not prayed about it yet. And as we learn to pray about things, you know. So I prayed that night, and nothing came. And then yesterday morning, the Lord woke me up just like that, a little bit before 5 a.m. And I was praying, I said, God, I really don't know what's going on through this. I don't know what caused it, and I don't know what I'm facing or how it's going to be handled. And I said, I don't know what to talk about when I go with them on, live. And I said, I don't want to really go in there and just say all of my troubles.
Right.
And I said, give me something. And usually God will give me one or two words.
Right.
He said, troubled waters.
Yeah.
He said, this is what you have been going through. Troubled waters. And it brought back to me in the Bible, when that man wanted healing, but he couldn't get in the pool.
Yes.
Because everybody was going ahead of him. God said, sometimes you need to stir up that gift in yourself that I have given you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at now. And, if it goes, it goes. If it don't, I still have the one that I know without a shadow of a doubt that I can trust, that I can depend on, that's there in the good times and the bad times.
Right.
And I'm never walking alone. When we're going through those troubles and those panics and those fears, the enemy likes to make us think, hey, you're all by yourself.
Right.
You have nobody to help you. Nobody cares anyway. But I want to tell you that there's one that will never leave us nor forsake us. And he's there even until the end. And, sometimes it's easy to get caught very quickly in the storm.
Well, and something that you and Melissa both just said
Absolutely.
that brought to my mind was, we all go to church, so we just think if a problem comes, we're just going to kind of think about it and God's going to help us.
Yes.
That's not what the Word says.
That's right.
It says to ask.
And faith without works is dead.
Right. And and when you sat down
Yes.
and you prayed, and you just said, we forget to pray.
Yeah.
Taking that time.
Yeah, taking the time to actually say, Lord, I need you to help me with this.
Yes.
Instead of just thinking, well, I go to church and he's going to help me and it's going to be okay. I'm telling you, he has reminded me time after time after time that that's not really how he works. I mean,
Yes.
in my life now, maybe he does in your life, but for me, I have to stop and I have to ask. And that's what brought to my mind when you were talking.
Well, like you said, if we don't ask, he already knows what we need.
Right.
But if we ask not, we're going to have not.
Right.
So we have to
Yeah.
ask. We have to seek him.
Yeah.
And that pleases God. When we do have troubles and storms and heartbreaks and troubles, he wants us to seek him and spend that time with him.
Right.
That gives him pleasure.
Yeah.
Because we're just like our children. When we do something for them, it pleases us.
Right.
We're his children.
Right.
That pleases God to do for us. But asking,
Right.
seeking, knocking,
Ask.
and asking.
Yeah.
And I went through many storms. You was talking about sickness and illness. I've had 2 types of cancer. He healed me and delivered me from a lifetime of depression and prescription drug addiction. And so I'm a miracle.
Yes.
And I am so blessed to be sitting here today with you all.
And we're
on
so
this.
blessed. And we're so blessed,
And
to have you as
I'm
part
nothing.
of our life.
I'm nothing without God, and I can do nothing without God because when I walked away from God a long time, I tried to live Betty's life. I tried to fix everything. And I tell you, without God, you cannot fix anything because
true.
it will be a mess. You
Yeah.
will bumble everything up. It will never work out. You just keep striving to fix it, and it never get fixed.
Yeah.
But with God, He can give you that peace and direction and guidance in how to be. And I brought something for Melissa to read out. I found on about a Bible thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. I read it just right before we came on, and it's really good. It says a bridge is a connection between 2 points. A bridge helps us to cross over what may be an obstacle. Here we look at Jesus as that bridge. A bridge provides passage over a body of water, a highway, or mountain. From a human condition of existence perspective, troubled water can easily represent an afflicted state of being. One may be fearful, agitated, anxious, bothered, vexed, or harassed. As I reflect on human life with its countless difficulties and numerous problems, a few situations come to mind which may be classified as troubled water experiences. When you go to the doctor and the diagnosis is not favorable, when your heart is broken into a million pieces, when you have lost your job and have no means of supporting your family, your money is funny, and your change is strange, or the death of a loved one can be looked upon as troubled waters. But in spite of it all, there is good news. You see, when we use the phrase, Jesus is a bridge over troubled water, we are saying that he is a means of transition which allows us to cross over. In time of need, Jesus is that solid foundation upon which we stand. He becomes our bridge who enables us to go from where we are to where we should be. It's never what comes into our life at all. I don't know if I've. It's
Right.
never what comes into our live it all. I forgot how to
I think
read.
it's supposed to be lives or something.
Live it all about who we cross over with. God is aware of the gap between his perfection and your sinfulness. That is where Jesus comes in. So he is that connection
Absolutely.
that we have to have, and without that connection, I mean, we just can't make it. We have to have that bridge.
Yeah.
So yeah, Betty, that
Yes.
was so good. That's a good perspective.
Yes.
So
I just, Betty's had cancer, and then Melissa mentioned illness. And, it's our past that reminds us what God can do in our future. And I'm here today because of my cancer
Yes.
diagnosis. If I had never had cancer, I really don't know if I'd ever got my life together. But it was that diagnosis that caused me to take a good look and stop what I was doing, which was pure foolishness. A lot of you that know me know the foolishness that I was doing. And it caused me to stop, call out to God, and ask him if he was real to show me. And that's the reason that I sit here today, is because he showed up, in that simple prayer. But I really had it on my heart, just thinking about troubled waters when Betty gave us that word today. And then I heard Brad Stevens talk today. There was something in me that I immediately just felt called to share tonight. And it's for wives. If you're a wife, I need you listening to me. If you know a wife that you could share this with, I need this message to go out. This is so important. And I'm going to tell you it's important because I've lived it. But often, I don't know if you or if you've ever experienced this, but you find yourself in a place you never thought you would be. You went down the aisle, you got married, and all of a sudden you found yourself a place in this marriage that you're like, wow, I didn't know it was going to turn out this way. Let me tell you something. I need you to listen up to me, because I've lived this, I've walked this, and I want to tell you how important you and your decisions and your walk with God is to having a good, wholesome, loving marriage. It is so important that the way that you behave and the way that you act, and that you keep your eyes on God and his word and follow his instructions. And that is what I've done with my life. Brad and I got married in January of 2017, and we had the best first 6 months, and all of a sudden 6 months later, he figured out I was imperfect, and I figured out he was imperfect, and oh my gosh, I was like, what in the world happened here? I mean, what did we get ourselves
The
into?
honeymoon was over.
It was over. Listen to me, it was over. But you know what Brad had done before we ever got married? He told me, he said, Shannon, and I actually had to write this down. He said, Shannon, he wrote it. He said, this is my prayer, that we may learn to love God more than we love each other. And in that moment, when he had discovered that I was not that great, and I discovered he was not that great, what I started doing was seeking God like I've never sought God before. And the Lord gave me a word. I was sitting over there in that green chair that's just over to the left of me. And I was reading the Bible, and God gave me a word, and he said, this kind only leaves by prayer and fasting. I was drinking my most favorite cup of coffee with just a little bit of hot chocolate in it. And I read that, and I was like, oh, God, please let me finish this hot chocolate first. Don't give me that
sounds like
first.
I might want some of that right now.
Oh my gosh, I've never had any sense. You know what I mean? I took the cup and I poured it out, and I started praying and fasting and just following God and showing my husband the respect that I didn't feel like showing him. Okay? I know that you're out there and you don't feel like showing the respect. It is what God calls you to do. You made a commitment. You made a marriage vow, and today is the day for it to be different. And you are to encourage your husband. And I have a book called The Power of the Praying Wife, and I prayed the heck out of that book. I mean, it's marked up where I pray it. And you know what? The last let's see, it's 3 years now. It's probably 3 years, probably close to the day, you know, or just maybe a couple months. And God has changed our marriage. You know, I'm telling you, but you as a wife, you determine the future of your marriage because your husband depends on you. He depends on you to be faithful, to be true, to be an example. And he may act like he's the tough guy that's not listening, but I'm telling you what, he's watching you. And you stay true to God, because when you do, when you put him first place, your home will completely change. If you commit your work to the Lord and do the next right thing, if you put God first place, don't put your spouse first place. He's not. Put God first place. Your spouse is second. God's first. Put him first place. And then always commit your work to the Lord. Do the next right thing. And I promise you, you'll have a marriage like you never, ever dreamed of or expected. But you know, those troubled waters came to me. And it taught me every bit of that. And my life's completely different now. You know, I grew up thinking that there was this, you know, the fairy tale wedding, the fairy tale everything. And guess what? Life is real, you know?
Absolutely.
And what God taught me is he wants to be number one. He wants to be the prince. And that's the bottom line. So that's the troubled waters that I got through. And the Lord has really just blessed our home, our marriage so much. And now, you know, I leave my husband little encouraging notes this morning. I was, you know, listening to some encouraging words, and it says, he that thinks he is, that's what he is. I know I just completely botched that, but anyway, whatever you think you are is what you are.
Yes.
And so I wrote down a note from my husband and left it on his bathroom sink. So when he came home tonight, I said, what do you think you are? Because let me tell you what I think you are. I think you're a provider. I think you're a good husband, a good father. This is what I think you are. And those are the encouraging words that I want him to come home to in the evenings. You know.
You know, Shannon, I believe it should have always been this way. A husband and wife both serving God. That's what keeps. That's very important to keep a marriage together. But nowadays, especially nowadays, the way times are and everything going on, it's very important that both stay close to the Lord.
It is.
Because it binds a marriage.
Yeah.
And with God, you can pray together, you can read the Bible together, study together, and you both have God, and that keeps you connected.
Well, we
very
went and
important.
seen Wendell Carmack before we got married, and he drew a triangle, and he put Brad at one corner of the triangle, me at the other, and he said, you know, if you two will just both seek God, both move towards God, you get closer and closer and closer. And it was such a great visual.
Yeah.
You know, if you'll just move towards God, both of you.
And it gives you a love for each other that you never dreamed of.
And it gives you something to hold on to. You know, God is the one, and his word and his instructions are what bind us together. So.
And that's what a marriage is supposed to be built on anyway. And I mean, Shannon and I both, we've been married twice. Well, Shannon's been married 3 times.
Yeah. Melissa.
I've been married twice.
Melissa. Okay, I'll let it go with that.
She's gonna let me go with that. But
We're best friends. We can talk to each other this way.
Shannon and I both didn't have marriages that were built. We didn't put we didn't put God at the top of anything. We thought we knew how to run our own marriages, and it didn't work once, and then it didn't work twice, and so after twice, you know, really after once, you realize it didn't work, but you just do it again, and then it don't work again, and if you don't have, like Betty said, it takes 2 people going in the same direction, wanting to achieve the same thing, and not that it can't work if you're both not, but it makes it harder. Yeah. Makes it so much harder, because if you don't have that, if you're wanting to go this way and he's wanting to go this way, you're not going to get up here. So, you know, you have to have that goal and the similar goal, you know, or the same goal. And I believe that's what makes a marriage work. And then if you're both putting all of your trust in God too, then you're not going to be wanting to come home and be mean to your husband or mistreat him. And even though he might be mean to you sometimes, or he may have had a bad day and he may come home and take it out on you, and then you just want to go shut the bedroom door and and not speak to him for the rest of the night. And that's the easy way. But then the next day, that problem's still going to be there, and it's still not going to be dealt with, and you went to bed mad, and it's preventive. You know,
Yeah.
if you're both on the same page, then you can talk it out in ways that only God can give you the
Yes.
direction to do. And so, troubled waters are everywhere. It's not just in
Absolutely.
marriages,
Right.
but a lot of marriages fail because of troubled waters and because you give up. You know, it's easier sometimes to just give up than to fight it,
Right.
really, because it's too hard sometimes for our physical self to fight that battle with a husband and a wife. You know, there are probably a lot of marriages that could have worked out if they would have both been serving God and would have both maybe not been serving God, but said, this is the way that we want to live our new life. We want to put God first
Right.
and go in this direction now. But a lot of people it's easier to just quit.
Yeah.
So the troubled waters will come,
Yeah.
but if
Absolutely.
you're living your life for God, He's gonna direct you. He's gonna get you through that storm and quiet the waves and calm the storm. And like me and Shannon, I'll be over here calm as Shannon. I'll not even be in a panic
Yeah.
because
Well,
Jesus.
since Melissa did throw me under the bus and tell everybody I've been married 3 times, I do want everybody to know that God is the missing ingredient. He
Yeah,
is the one
He
that
is.
sustains.
He
You
is.
know,
He is.
I have found that to be true from all my experience.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shannon's a good example. Shannon's a great example because Shannon has really learned what to do. I don't know of a wife out there. I'm sure that they are, but I know how devoted Shannon is to her husband, to her family, and I didn't know Shannon before, so I only know the stories that she's told me. But I don't know of a more devoted wife. I don't know of a wife that prays for her husband like Shannon does. And at times, I might even think to myself, why are you praying?
At least you're being honest.
But it just shows her faithfulness, and
Yes.
it has got her so far in her marriage. And I've seen that, and I hope that she can guide me
Absolutely.
one day, because I think that's what we all want. Everybody wants a good, happy marriage.
Yeah, you do.
Absolutely.
And you don't get a good, happy marriage
Right.
without God.
Right.
Troubles will still come.
Right.
You're still going to have things that
Absolutely.
come up. You'll have illnesses to deal with. You'll have financial problems that just are so hard, and you might want to give up, and you'll have
Yeah.
things that come. But if you put God at the top of that, and you're both
Absolutely.
going in the same direction and wanting to serve Him, He's going to provide.
Right.
So
He will.
we're so glad that Betty came with us tonight. You got
I'm
anything
so,
else you
I'm
want
so
to say,
glad to
Betty?
be. You know, you're just talking about calming the seas. Jesus can calm the seas.
Yeah.
He's the master of the seas.
Yeah.
He's the master of the
Yes.
winds.
Mhm.
We need
I
to
like
let him be
that.
the masters of our lives.
Right.
He wants
Yeah.
to be on top, our top list.
Mhm.
And you know, like Shannon said, if we put him first,
Yeah.
seek ye first the
The
kingdom of God,
Yep.
and all his righteousness,
Yeah.
and then all these other things will be added unto you.
Yeah,
So
That's
oh,
right.
true.
if we seek him, we shouldn't have to worry about anything because he's our provider.
Right. So we write down, what our plan is. What is it that we want? Write it down, put it away, and get busy seeking God, putting Him first, committing your work to Him. Do the next right thing. When you don't know what to do the next right thing. He will get you to that plan. You don't have to work towards that plan.
Absolutely.
God will get you to that plan.
Because if you're trying to get to your own plan too, this is just my opinion of this, because I've been so guilty of this for all my life, is I never thought I had a goal actually, but I knew this is how I want my life to go, and this is what's going to happen, and if I do this, then this is going to happen. But we don't direct our path. We
Right.
don't
That's
direct the way that God wants to lead us. If I would have been directing my own steps, I would have never been doing this live because I used to do a cooking show.
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
good. I was good with that. I was
Right.
good with just
Yes,
doing
you
that
were.
cooking
Yeah.
show.
Yes.
Yeah, we loved our cooking show.
But so I quit doing the cooking show because I really did not have time. I lost the extra time that I had. I ended up with a new job, and my hours were longer, and I didn't have the time. So when God told me to do this, and we decided one night a week, I thought, Lord, please let me be able to do that, because I'm
Absolutely.
going to devote that one night a week to helping others. So
Right.
help me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I never would have planned that for myself.
Has God made it easy for you to show up on Tuesday nights?
He's made it easy, yeah, and
He made it easy for me too, which
Yeah.
seems impossible.
well,
really.
even when I get off at 5, so most of the time I have to pick Kaylin up from wherever she is
Right.
and take her home and then come
Come back.
or
She
either
passes
I have
my house.
Yeah.
and then
yeah,
goes
I
back.
pass it, or either Kaylin is at home, which is 35 minutes away from my work, so I have to go all the way home
Yeah.
and then come all the way back to
Right.
get her. And most of the time we try to be here by around 6:30, so we
Yeah.
can kind of go over things. But God makes it work.
He's
I've
made a
never been
way.
late,
Uh-huh.
and in road
And it's
work.
not been a problem, you know.
I sit in
to-
road work every time I'm sitting in road work thinking I'm going to be late. I always have plenty of time.
Yeah.
So God does direct our steps, and
Yes.
what He wants you to do, He's going to provide a way for you to do that. So if you're going through something right now that you just feel like is the worst, it's the worst storm that you've ever been through in your life, I guarantee you that we've all three been there.
Yes.
And you will get through it.
Yes.
The best thing that I know to tell you is just pray your way through it, though.
Yes.
And don't be ashamed to ask others to pray for you. Sometimes our storm is so bad that we're not even in our right minds
To be able to
and-
pray,
and,
right?
and we need to say,
That's
hey,
for
instead
sure.
of me just, I need to ask Shannon or Betty
Right.
to pray for me.
Yeah.
So don't be embarrassed or ashamed. We'll pray with you.
You don't
or-
even have to give us details.
No.
Just say
Right.
pray.
and
you
we
know?
and we will, because that's what we're here for.
That's
We pray
right.
for each other, and that's that's our goal for this group, and we hope to bring joy to people that don't
Yes.
have any joy, because
Right.
I've not had joy before. I've
Yeah.
had zero joy. I know what it's like to just be
Yes.
blank, to just be solid and not have any joy. And God can bring that. He can bring that joy from just the worst storm that you've ever had in your life. He can turn it around. So I thank Betty so much for joining us
Thank
tonight.
you guys.
I think it's went okay.
Yeah. We did good.
to be unprepared. I
Yeah.
think it's went okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure next week. Do we have us scheduled?
Did you see if Misty wanted
I'm
to
going to
come?
ask Misty if
Misty,
you're on
will
here.
you come next Tuesday?
If you're on
please?
here, we have a blank spot for next Tuesday. So we'll
If
get
not,
it.
you'll be stuck with Melissa and I, who have plenty of things to throw each other under the bus about.
we
don't
do.
we?
Oh, my time's probably coming next week.
Yes.
It's a good thing I'm a good girl all the time.
Whatever.
It's a good thing.
Did you notice how unprepared each of us seemed to be, and how God just confirmed each
Yeah.
thing? It just fit into like
That's
a
what-
puzzle piece.
Yes,
Yeah.
he does.
So sometimes I told you it's best maybe to be unprepared, because
Yeah.
that way
Yeah.
God has full
Control.
range in
Yeah.
what
He
to do.
Yeah, and he can just open up any door that he wants to open up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do it here. We just kind of wing it and hope.
We just
hope
follow
for
the Lord
best.
and let Him lead us. Yeah.
But we're so glad that you joined us tonight.
Yes.
We love doing this. If we can help one person, or sometimes we may just help each other.
That's
right.
We never
Yeah.
we never know if we're helping any of you guys, but normally it helps us. It helps
Yeah.
me anyway. So we will see you guys next week. We thank you all so much for joining us, and you all have a safe, blessed week.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you feel like we've said anything that would help you, if you could share it, maybe we could help somebody else too.
Yeah.
All right. God bless you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.